I never thought I'd become invisible in my own son's life. But that's exactly what happened. And the worst part? I didn't even see it coming until it was too late. When my daughter-in-law asked me to leave their home, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just smiled, picked up my suitcase and walked out the door. Maybe that sounds strange to you. Maybe you're wondering why a mother would do that. But you see, by that point I had already cried all my tears. I had already felt every piece of my heart break, one small crack at a time. That final moment wasn't the end. It was just the last page of a story that had been written over many months, in ways so quiet I barely noticed them happening. My name is Margaret, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 68 years old now, and I've lived what most people would call a good life. I raised my son Daniel by myself after my husband passed away when Danny was only 7. Those were hard years, I won't lie. Working 2 jobs, coming home late, making sure there was always food on the table and clean clothes for school. But we made it work. We were a team, Danny and me. I used to tell him that we were like 2 birds in a nest looking out for each other. And he'd laugh and say, "Mom, you're the mama bird and I'm the baby bird." Even when he got older, even when he went to college, we stayed close. Or at least I thought we did. Daniel met Sarah during his last year of college. He was studying business, same as him. Pretty girl. Smart. Confident. When he first brought her home to meet me, I was so happy. I remember making a big dinner, roast chicken with all the sides, apple pie for dessert. I wanted her to feel welcome. I wanted her to see that even though it was just the 2 of us, we had love in our home. He smiled a lot that evening. He complimented my cooking. She held Danny's hand across the table. And I thought, this is good. This is what I wanted for my son. Someone to love him, to build a life with him. They got married 2 years later. It was a beautiful wedding. Small but beautiful. I helped pay for some of it even though money was tight. I didn't mind. What else was I going to spend it on? Danny was my whole world. Seeing him happy was all I ever wanted. Sarah looked like an angel in her white dress, and when they said their vows, I cried. Happy tears, you understand. The kind of tears a mother cries when she sees her child step into a new chapter of life. For the first year everything seemed fine. They lived in an apartment across town and I'd visit once a week, usually on Sundays. I'd bring a casserole or some cookies I'd baked. We'd have coffee together, talk about their week, their jobs, their plans. Sarah was always polite. Always smiling. But I started to notice small things. The way she'd check her watch when I was talking. The way she'd glance at Danny when I offered to help with something around the apartment. Little things. Things I told myself didn't mean anything. Then one Sunday Danny called and said maybe I shouldn't come that week. They were busy, he said. Lots of work stuff. I understood. Young couple building their careers. Of course they were busy. So I stayed home. But the next week he said the same thing. And the week after that. Soon my weekly visits became every other week. Then once a month. Then even less. I started to feel it then. That distance. Like standing on one side of a river and watching someone you love on the other side, getting smaller and smaller as they walk away. I'd call Danny and he'd answer, but our conversations got shorter. He sounded distracted. Rushed. Always about to do something else. I'd ask if everything was okay and he'd say, "Yes, Mom, everything's fine, we're just busy." And I'd hang up feeling like I'd done something wrong, even though I couldn't figure out what. About a year and a half into their marriage, Sarah got pregnant. When Danny told me, I was over the moon. A grandchild. I was going to be a grandmother. I started knitting baby blankets, looking at little clothes in stores, imagining holding that tiny life in my arms. I asked Danny if I could come over to talk about the baby, maybe help Sarah with preparations. He said they'd let me know. But weeks went by and that invitation never came. I saw pictures on social media instead. Sarah's baby shower, thrown by her friends and her mother. Decorations, games, gifts piled high. I wasn't invited. I stared at those photos for a long time, trying to understand. Maybe it was just a friend's thing, I told myself. Maybe they'd do a family thing separately. But that never happened either. When my grandson was born, Danny called me from the hospital. "It's a boy, Mom. We named him Ethan." I could hear the joy in his voice and my heart swelled. I asked when I could come see them. He said they needed a few days to settle in first. A few days turned into a week. Then 2 weeks. Finally, he said I could come by for a short visit. I'll never forget that day. I drove to their apartment with a gift bag full of things for the baby. My hands were shaking when I knocked on the door. Sarah answered. She looked tired, which was natural, but there was something else in her eyes. Something cool. She let me in and there he was. Little Ethan sleeping in his bassinet. He was perfect. Tiny fingers, tiny nose, a little tuft of dark hair just like Danny had when he was born. I wanted to hold him, but Sarah said he'd just fallen asleep and she didn't want to wake him. So I just stood there looking down at my grandson, feeling like a visitor in a museum. Not allowed to touch. Only allowed to look. I stayed for maybe 30 minutes. The whole time Sarah hovered nearby. Not rude exactly. Just watchful. Like she was making sure I didn't do anything wrong. When I left, I hugged Danny and told him I was proud of him. He hugged me back, but it felt different. Lighter. Like he was already thinking about something else. Over the next few months I tried to be involved. I really did. I'd call and ask if they needed anything. Could I bring dinner? Could I babysit? Danny always said they were fine, they had it under control. Sarah's mother was helping a lot, he mentioned once. That stung, but I tried not to let it show. I told myself that was natural too. Sarah was probably more comfortable with her own mother. That made sense, didn't it? But then I started seeing more pictures. Sarah's mom holding Ethan. Sarah's mom at their apartment cooking dinner. Sarah's mom going with them to the park. And where was I? At home looking at pictures on a screen. I didn't want to be that kind of mother. The kind who complains, who makes demands, who guilt trips her own child. So I stayed quiet. I swallowed the hurt and told myself things would get better. Maybe when Ethan got a little older. Maybe when things settled down. But things didn't get better. They got worse. About 6 months after Ethan was born, I got a call from Danny. This one was different. He sounded nervous. He said he and Sarah had been talking, and they'd decided it might be better if I didn't visit as often. They needed space to figure out their rhythm as a family. He said it wasn't personal. He said they just needed time. I remember sitting on my couch after that call, staring at the wall. Not crying. Just empty. Because what could I say? If my own son was telling me to stay away, what choice did I have? I told him I understood. I told him I'd give them space. And I did. Weeks turned into months. I'd text Danny sometimes just to check in. He'd respond with short answers. Good. Busy. Talk soon. But we never did talk. Not really. I stopped calling because I felt like I was bothering him. I stopped asking to visit because I couldn't take being turned down again. Then about 8 months ago everything changed. Danny called me out of the blue. He sounded different. Not nervous this time, but flat. He said Sarah had gotten a new job offer in another state. A really good opportunity. They were going to move. And before they did, they wanted to sell their apartment and save money. He asked if I'd be willing to let them stay with me for a few months while they prepared for the move and looked for a place. I said yes before he even finished asking. I know what you're thinking. After everything, why would I say yes? But you have to understand. This was my chance. My chance to be close to my son again. To be part of my grandson's life, even if just for a little while. I thought maybe if they lived with me we could reconnect. Maybe Sarah would see that I wasn't trying to interfere. That I just wanted to help. To be family. They moved in 2 weeks later. At first it was everything I'd hoped for. The house felt alive again. I could hear Ethan's little giggles, his babbling. I'd make breakfast for everyone, pack lunches for Danny and Sarah. I'd offer to watch Ethan while they ran errands. Sarah would say yes sometimes, and those moments were precious to me. Sitting on the floor with my grandson playing with blocks, reading him stories. He'd look up at me with those big brown eyes and my heart would feel full. But slowly things started to shift. Sarah had certain ways of doing things. And I understood that. Every mother does. But it felt like nothing I did was quite right. If I gave Ethan a snack, it was too close to dinner. If I let him play outside, he got too dirty. If I read him a story, it was the wrong kind of book. She never yelled. She never even raised her voice. She'd just smile and say, "Thanks, Maggie, but we usually do it this way," and then she'd take over. I started to feel like I couldn't do anything right. I tried to follow her rules, but there were so many of them. And they seemed to change. One day it was fine if Ethan watched a little TV. The next day screen time was completely off limits. One day I could give him juice, the next only water. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. And Danny just went along with whatever Sarah said. If she corrected me, he'd nod. If she made a new rule, he'd enforce it. I tried to talk to him once, privately. I asked if I was doing something wrong. He looked uncomfortable. He said, "No, Mom, you're doing great, but Sarah has a system and it's easier if we all stick to it." I wanted to say, "But this is my house. I wanted to say, I raised you and you turned out fine. But I didn't. I just nodded and said I'd try harder. Then came the little comments. Maggie, maybe you should rest more. You look tired. Maggie, we can handle dinner tonight. You've done enough. Maggie, I think Ethan should nap now. He's getting overstimulated. Every sentence was polite. Every word was kind. But underneath I felt it. I was being pushed out. Gently, quietly, but pushed out all the same. One afternoon I was folding laundry in the living room. Ethan was playing nearby and Sarah was on her phone. I picked up one of Ethan's shirts and Sarah looked up. She said, "Oh Maggie, you don't have to do that. I'll get to it later." I said it was no trouble. I was happy to help. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Really," she said. "I've got it." I put the shirt down. I walked to my room and closed the door. And I sat on the edge of my bed, feeling like a stranger in my own home. The weeks went on like that. I tried to stay out of the way. I tried to be helpful but not intrusive. But nothing I did seemed to be enough. Or maybe it was too much. I couldn't tell anymore. Then one evening Sarah and Danny sat me down at the kitchen table. They had something they wanted to talk about. My stomach tightened. I knew that tone. Sarah did most of the talking. She said they'd been thinking a lot about their living situation. They were so grateful for everything I'd done letting them stay here helping with Ethan. But they felt like it wasn't fair to me. They were taking up so much space. I was giving up my privacy, my routine. They thought it might be better if they moved out a little earlier than planned. They'd found a small rental nearby. It wasn't much, but it would work until the big move. I looked at Danny. He was staring at the table. He didn't say a word. I asked when they were planning to leave. Sarah said in about a week. I nodded. I said I understood. I said of course they needed their own space. I kept my voice steady, kept my face calm. But inside I was breaking. They moved out 6 days later. I helped them pack. I smiled when Sarah thanked me. I hugged Danny and told him I was proud of him. I held Ethan one last time, kissed his forehead and whispered, "Grandma loves you." Then they left. The house was so quiet after they were gone. I walked from room to room, seeing the empty spaces where their things had been. Ethan's toys. Danny's jacket on the coat rack. Sarah's coffee mug in the sink. All gone. I sat down on the couch and for the first time in months I let myself cry. Not loud, dramatic sobs. Just quiet tears running down my face. Because I finally understood. I wasn't part of their family anymore. I was an outsider. A stranger in my own son's life. I thought about all the years I'd spent raising Danny. All the nights I stayed up late, sewing patches on his jeans because I couldn't afford new ones. All the times I missed work when he was sick because no one else was there to take care of him. All the dreams I put on hold so he could chase his. And now he was gone. Not physically maybe, but emotionally. He'd chosen his new family. And I wasn't in it. I didn't hear from them much after that. A text here and there. Picture of Ethan now and then. I'd respond, always cheerful, always supportive. But the messages got fewer and farther between. Then about a month ago I got a message from Danny. They were having a birthday party for Ethan. He was turning 2. They wanted to invite me. I said yes, of course. I bought a gift, wrapped it carefully, and drove to their new rental house on the day of the party. When I arrived, the driveway was full of cars. I could hear music and laughter from inside. Sarah answered the door. She hugged me, said it was good to see me. But I could see it in her eyes again. That coolness. That distance. I went inside and the house was packed with people. Sarah's family. Her friends. Kids running everywhere. And there, in the middle of it all, was Ethan. He was wearing a little party hat, laughing as someone handed him a balloon. I walked over to him, knelt down and said, "Hi, sweetie. Happy birthday." He looked at me. And there was no recognition in his eyes. None at all. He stared at me like I was just another stranger at the party. Then he turned and ran to Sarah's mother, calling out, "Grandma." I stood there frozen. Sarah's mother scooped him up, kissed his cheek, and he giggled. He was Grandma. Not me. I stayed for maybe an hour. I tried to talk to Danny, but he was busy hosting, making sure everyone had food and drinks. I tried to talk to Sarah, but she was organizing games and cutting the cake. I sat in a corner watching my grandson play with people who knew him better than I did. When it was time to leave, I found Danny and told him I had to go. He walked me to the door, thanked me for coming. I handed him the gift and he said Ethan would love it. I nodded. I hugged him. And as I walked to my car, I realized something. I had become invisible. Not all at once. Not with some big dramatic moment. Just little by little, day by day, I'd faded from their lives. And the worst part was I'd let it happen. I'd stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I'd smiled when I should have set boundaries. I'd tried so hard to be the perfect mother, the perfect grandmother, that I'd forgotten to be a person with feelings and needs of my own. Driving home that day, I thought about what I could have done differently. Maybe I should have said something when the visits stopped. Maybe I should have insisted on being part of Ethan's life from the beginning. Maybe I should have talked to Danny, really talked to him instead of always saying everything was fine. But I also realized something else. I couldn't force my way into their lives. I couldn't make them want me there. And maybe, in some strange way, this was what letting go looked like. Not because I didn't love them, but because love sometimes means stepping back even when it hurts. I still think about them every day. I still hope that one day Danny will call just to talk. Not because he needs something, but because he wants to hear my voice. I hope that one day Ethan will ask about me. That someone will tell him stories about his other grandmother. The one who loved him before he was even born. But I'm learning to live with the possibility that those things might never happen. And I'm learning that my life has value, even if I'm not part of theirs. I've started doing things for myself. Little things. I joined a book club at the library. I volunteer at a community center helping with meals for seniors. I've made friends. Real friends who ask how I'm doing and actually want to know the answer. Some days are harder than others. There are moments when I see a grandmother and grandchild at the park and my chest tightens. There are nights when I lie in bed and wonder if I'll ever hold Ethan again. But I'm surviving. And some days I'm even okay. I think about the kind of mother I tried to be. Always giving. Always sacrificing. Always putting everyone else first. And I wonder if that was really love or if it was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being needed. Fear that if I wasn't constantly giving, I wouldn't be worth keeping around. I think I taught Danny that lesson without meaning to. I taught him that mothers don't have needs. That we're just there in the background waiting to be useful. And when Sarah came along with her own ideas and her own mother who was more assertive, more present, maybe it was just easier for him to let me go. I don't blame him. Not really. He's living his life, building his family. That's what I wanted for him. I just didn't realize how much it would hurt to not be part of it. But here's what I've learned. You can love someone with your whole heart and still lose them. Not because of something you did wrong. Not because you didn't try hard enough. Sometimes, people just grow in different directions. And you have to let them go even when every part of you wants to hold on. I've also learned that being a mother doesn't mean erasing yourself. It doesn't mean becoming invisible so your children can shine. It means being whole, being present, being honest. And if I could go back, I'd do things differently. I'd speak up when something bothered me. I'd set boundaries instead of always bending to fit someone else's shape. I'd teach Danny that relationships are a two-way street, and love means showing up for each other, not just when it's convenient. But I can't go back. All I can do is move forward. I don't know if Danny and I will ever have the relationship I dreamed of. I don't know if Ethan will ever know me as anything more than the woman who sends birthday cards and Christmas presents. But I do know this. I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I still have a life worth living even if it looks different than I thought it would. There are days when I pick up my phone to call Danny and then I put it down. Because I'm tired of feeling like a burden. I'm tired of tiptoeing around someone else's life, hoping for scraps of attention. If he wants to talk to me, he knows where I am. And maybe that makes me sound bitter. Maybe it makes me sound like I've given up. But I don't think it's either of those things. I think it's acceptance. Accepting that I can't control how other people feel about me. I can't make Danny miss me. I can't make Sarah want me in her life. All I can do is decide how I'm going to spend the time I have left on this earth. I'm 68 years old. I don't know how many years I have ahead of me. But I'm not going to spend them waiting by the phone, hoping for a call that might never come. I'm going to live. Really live. For me. I've started painting. Did I mention that? I never had time when Danny was young. But now I do. I'm not very good at it, but that's okay. I like the way the brush feels in my hand. I like the way colors blend on the canvas. It's something that's mine. I've also started writing letters. Not to send. Just for myself. Letters to Danny telling him all the things I wish I could say. Letters to Ethan telling him about his grandfather, about the family history he might never know. Letters to my younger self, telling her it's okay to take up space. It's okay to have needs. Writing those letters has helped. It's like releasing the words that have been stuck inside me for so long. And even though no one else will read them, they matter. Does I matter? I think that's the lesson I'm still learning. That I matter even when I'm alone. That my worth isn't tied to how much someone needs me. That I can be enough all by myself. It's a hard lesson. One of the hardest I've ever had to learn. Because for so long my identity was wrapped up in being Danny's mom. And when that was taken away, I didn't know who I was anymore. But I'm figuring it out. Slowly. One day at a time. I still love my son. I still love my grandson. That hasn't changed and it never will. But I'm learning to love myself too. To give myself the same grace and kindness I always gave to them. And maybe that's the real story here. Not about how I lost my son. But about how I found myself. I don't have a neat, happy ending to tie this all up with. Life isn't like that. It's messy and complicated and full of loose ends. But I can tell you this, I'm okay. Not perfect. Not healed completely. But okay. There are still hard days. Days when I see a picture of Ethan on social media and have to close the app because it hurts too much. Days when I wonder if I should try one more time to reach out to bridge that gap. But those days are getting fewer. And there are good days too. Days when I laugh with my new friends. Days when I finish a painting and step back, surprised by what I've created. Days when I wake up and feel grateful just to be alive, to have this quiet, peaceful life that's all my own. I think about the mothers out there who might be going through something similar. The ones who've been pushed to the margins of their children's lives. The ones who smile and say they're fine when really they're breaking inside. I want to tell them that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel hurt and sad and angry. Those feelings are valid. But I also want to tell them that they're more than just someone's mother. They're whole people with dreams and talents and worth that exists outside of their relationships. And even if their children don't see that right now, it doesn't make it any less true. I used to think that unconditional love meant accepting anything, tolerating everything, never setting boundaries. But now I know that real love includes loving yourself. And sometimes, loving yourself means walking away from people who make you feel small, even if those people are your own family. I haven't walked away completely. The door is still open. If Danny calls tomorrow and says he wants to rebuild our relationship, I'll be here. But I'm not holding my breath. And I'm not putting my life on hold anymore. I've also learned to recognize the signs I missed before. The way Sarah's polite words were really walls. The way Danny's silence was a choice, not just busyness. The way I bent and bent until I nearly broke, thinking that's what love looked like. If I could talk to my younger self, the one who was so excited to meet Sarah, so happy that Danny had found someone, I'd tell her to pay attention. To trust her instincts when something feels off. To speak up sooner. To remember that relationships are built on respect and effort from both sides. But I can't change the past. I can only learn from it. These days I spend a lot of time thinking about legacy. What do I want to leave behind? For so long I thought my legacy was Danny. The life I gave him, the sacrifices I made. But now I see that legacy is more than that. It's how you lived your own life. How you treated yourself and others. The kindness you put into the world. So I'm trying to live in a way that would make me proud. I help my neighbors. I donate to causes I care about. I'm kind to the cashier at the grocery store and the person who delivers my mail. Small things maybe. But they add up. And I'm learning to be kind to myself too. To forgive myself for the mistakes I made. For staying quiet when I should have spoken. For trying so hard to be perfect that I forgot to be real. I'm learning that it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to have needs and wants and boundaries. It's okay to say, this hurts, instead of always saying, I'm fine. I wish Danny could see this version of me. The one who's learning to stand up for herself. The one who's finding joy in her own life. I think he might be surprised. Maybe even proud. But even if he never sees it, that's okay. As I see it. And that's enough. There's a saying I heard once, you can't pour from an empty cup. For years I poured and poured until there was nothing left. I gave everything I had to Danny and then to his family, and I didn't save anything for myself. Now I'm filling my own cup. Fully. With books and painting and friendships and quiet mornings with coffee on the porch. With small joys and simple pleasures. With the knowledge that I'm enough just as I am. And you know what? Some days my cup feels pretty full. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Danny will ever understand how much his distance hurt me. I don't know if Ethan will ever ask about me, or if I'll ever get to be a real grandmother to him. But I do know that I'll be okay no matter what happens. Because I've learned something important. I don't need anyone else to complete me. I'm already whole. That doesn't mean I don't get lonely sometimes. I do. There are nights when the house feels too quiet, when I wish I had someone to talk to. But loneliness isn't the same as being incomplete. It's just a feeling, and like all feelings, it passes. And in between those lonely moments, there are moments of peace. Moments when I look around my home with its painted canvases and stacks of library books and photos of a life well lived, and I think, this is mine. I built this. Not the life I planned. Not the life I dreamed of when Danny was small and I imagined being a hands-on grandmother, part of a big loving family. But a life nonetheless. A good life. A life that matters. I think that's what I want other people to know. If you're going through something like this, if you feel invisible in someone else's life, please know that you're not invisible to yourself. You matter. Your feelings matter. Your life matters. And it's okay to step back. It's okay to protect your heart. It's okay to say, I can't keep doing this, and choose yourself for once. That doesn't make you selfish. It makes you human. I still have hope. Not the desperate, clinging hope I used to have, where I'd wait by the phone and jump every time it rang. But a quieter, gentler hope. Hope that one day things might be different. Hope that Danny will realize what he's missing. Hope that Ethan will want to know his other grandmother. But I'm not waiting for that hope to come true before I start living. I'm living now. Today. In this moment. And that's my message to anyone who's listening. Don't wait for someone else to make you feel worthy. Don't wait for permission to live your life. You have everything you need already. You are enough right now, exactly as you are. Took me 68 years to learn that lesson. But I'm grateful I learned it at all. So yes, I became a stranger in my own son's life. But in the process I became a friend to myself. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most important relationship of all. I don't have a fairy tale ending where Danny and I reconcile and everything goes back to the way it was. Because honestly, I'm not sure I'd want that anymore. The way it was meant me making myself smaller so others could be bigger. It meant swallowing hurt and pretending everything was fine. If we ever do rebuild our relationship, I want it to be different. I want it to be honest. I want both of us to show up as whole people with boundaries and respect and real communication. But that might never happen. And I'm okay with that too. Because I've learned that you can love someone and let them go at the same time. You can wish them well and still protect your own heart. You can hold space for the possibility of reconnection without making your entire life about waiting for it. These are hard truths. They don't feel good. But they're real. And reality, I've found, is where healing happens. So here I am. A grandmother who doesn't get to see her grandson. A mother whose son has drifted away. A woman who's learning to build a life that doesn't revolve around anyone else. Some days it feels like failure. Like I did something wrong and this is the consequence. But other days it feels like freedom. Like I've been carrying a heavy weight for so long and I've finally set it down. Maybe it's both. Maybe life is messy like that, where things can be sad and liberating at the same time. All I know is that I'm still here. Still breathing. Still finding reasons to smile. And that's something. That's enough. If you're reading this or listening to this and you see yourself in my story, please know you're not alone. There are more of us than you'd think. Mothers and fathers and grandparents who've been pushed to the edges, who've had to learn to live with the loss of relationships they thought would last forever. It's painful. It's one of the deepest pains I've ever felt. But it doesn't have to be the end of your story. You can grieve what you've lost and still build something new. You can carry the sadness and still find joy. You can be heartbroken and whole at the same time. That's what I'm learning to do. And if I can do it, so can you. So to anyone out there feeling invisible, feeling forgotten, feeling like a stranger in someone else's life, I see you. Your pain is real. Your feelings are valid. And you deserve a life that's more than just waiting in the shadows. You deserve to be seen. To be valued. To matter. Even if it's just to yourself. Especially to yourself. That's the lesson I wish I'd learned sooner. But I'm learning it now, and that's what counts. I'm 68 years old and I'm finally learning who I am when I'm not defined by someone else's needs. And you know what? I kind of like her. She's stronger than I thought. Braver. More resilient. She's still learning. Still growing. Still making mistakes. But she's trying. And she's here. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.